We come together, yes. Oh, today, this month, we've been talking about living in color. Yeah. And we've talked a lot about what that means, how to be authentic, where our consciousness is. And Rick, you come up and you share with us where your consciousness is, which is about honoring yourself, honoring nature, honoring your history, your ancestors, as well as your family today. Thank you for that, for sharing. And Alan sings to us about Namaste, which is, I see the God in you and you see the God in me. What spiritual practices we're sharing here. And the greatest spiritual practice, I would say, that I would challenge you, is to share yourself, to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable means, we have our social media face, right? And we've got our Sunday service face. But what about the real who I am? Do we share that? I would also say one of the biggest gifts that we could get to give is to see the people that we're encountering. So we want to show ourselves to be seen, and then we want to see the people that we're engaging with. So that takes us to, thank you, David. I never remember the clicker until I'm like, oh, my first slide. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It is our greatest measure of courage, Brené Brown. When I heard the topic was about being vulnerable, of course Brené Brown comes to mind. Remember the first time I heard her talk was on KNPR, and it was All Things Considered, one of my favorite shows, and she was talking about the idea of shame and vulnerability, and she's a researcher, so for years she's been collecting testimonials about what makes people happy and what stops us from being happy. And shame is one of those things that destroys happiness, destroys vulnerability. The book I've been reading, Existential Kink, she says shame kills the magic, which I agree with. So getting past the shame and knowing that opening ourselves up and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable is one of the most courageous things that we can do. And the odd thing is that a lot of us, we're scared about showing who we are, the underbelly, and yet we admire and respect and find inspiration in those who do that, who are vulnerable and honest and open to who they really are. Right? We go, wow, I want to be that guy. So in how creating vulnerability is, it's really about becoming aware of who you are, of paying attention to what's going on inside of you. Give you an example. That whole awareness thing. I went to a graduation a couple of weeks ago. It was the new ministers graduating from Redondo Beach. So there was about 4 or 5 of them. And a couple of people were being honored with being presented their master's hoods. And I'm like, oh, I want to get my master's hood. So I text the dean. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be there. Can I get my master hood too? And she said, I'm ordering enough. If you're here, I'll definitely make sure you get one if they come in. Well, I get there, and she's like, oh, Rachel, you're here. And she goes, oh, they didn't come in. I only have 2. So I can't present you one. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. So, but I was still in the procession, so I still had my robe, and I had my stole, and I walked down, and I'm sitting in the front row, and it comes to that part of the ceremony where she says, well, the people that are being presented their master robes, please, or hoods, please come up. And so the 2 of the 3 of us get up and go, and all of a sudden, I get this wave of not enoughness, of insignificance, of feeling like I'm unimportant, and I was just devastated. And then I thought to myself, Rachel, what are you doing? What are you feeling right now? Why are you feeling this? Are these old tapes? It's just that awareness of this is how I'm feeling. Why am I feeling that? So I spent, while they're doing their hooding thing and I'm watching it, that time exploring me, being vulnerable with me, being honest and open and real with me. And by the end of that little bit of the ceremony, I was able to release it and be grateful that I was here to honor my friends who were getting their hoods. And that useless and unimportant and unnecessary part of me that I was feeling was just an echo from another time. So, at the end of the ceremony, the dean gets up and she goes, I just had this inspiration. I was just sitting here thinking that there are 3 groups of people here, the people that are graduating right now, the people that got the hoods, and then there's about 5 of people that, because of COVID, never had a ceremony. And she named off those people, including Reverend Joe Kovach, and said, but Rachael Dilling is here today. Rachael, will you please stand? I was like, did I just do that? Was that like in my consciousness that I just created that? I'm going to own it. It was. And I felt so loved and so honored. My eyes got all teary. And I thought to myself, that's the power. That's the power of allowing me to be vulnerable and honest with me. That's the power of looking at me and saying, where are these feelings coming from? What is this about? Because when I shift my energy, I shift the energy around me. That's vulnerability. That's power, right? So along with vulnerability, there is this unconditional acceptance of myself, of who I am, that God energy that is within me that's going to show the experience that I'm here to have as God. And then the unconditional acceptance of the people around me. That I can look at you and love you for who you are, whatever that is, your expression of God. Which can be a little challenging, especially if you're engaging with somebody that you're in total disagreement with or is in total disagreement with you. So I have a girlfriend of mine, and I did something and she was not happy with it. But she's a girlfriend of mine, and so there I am. She called, and so I'm waiting at the coffee shop for her because she had called and asked if I could meet her so she could have a discussion with me. And I was anxious about it because she has a bit of a temper. And I had talked to my prayer partners about it, and one of them reminded me about this unconditional acceptance. To hold the space for her to be who she is, to show up the way she needs to show up, and to stay in a place of love. And I'm like, I can do that. So I sat at the coffee shop, and I opened myself up, and I have this mantra in my mind. I am so full of love, there is no room for judgment. I am so full of love, there is no room for judgment. So she came in, because she's always late. She came in and she sat down, and I'm in this place of, I'm so full of love, there is no room for judgment. I'm simply holding the space for her to be who she needs to be. And we had the most vulnerable conversation that I've ever had with her. She told me about her fears and her concerns and her loves and her anxiety and the things that were going on in her life right now. And it actually never got back to, Rachael, you were wrong, which is where I thought it was going to go. It wasn't there at all. But because I was willing to open, to hold the space to honor her and who she was, to give her the ability to express and to be vulnerable, she took it. I didn't even do anything. I was being something, but I wasn't doing anything, right? So this is not a hard thing to do. Well, let me say it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy, because it takes self-discipline. It takes boundaries. It takes my willingness and my ability to hold myself accountable, right? So 3 easy parts. So in your mind right now, I'd like you to think about an uncomfortable situation. It doesn't have to be a hard one. It can be an easy, uncomfortable situation, but put it in your mind. And you're looking at that individual, and I want you to get curious. Curious about why they have the perspective, or where they're coming from, or what's going on in their life. And I want you to think of one question, and I want you to ask in your mind's eye that question, that curious question. And then I want you to look at this person in your mind's eye, and I want you to think of a strength that they have. Passion, concern, a big heart, full of love, whatever that is. And I want you to say, I see in you, and give that strength to that individual. And finally, I want you to offer silent goodwill to this individual, a blessing, if you will. May you be blessed with a sense of security, love, compassion. Does that change the feeling of the conversation in your mind's eye? By being curious, by seeing the strength in somebody else, and blessing them with goodwill, can shift everything that's going on. Because you can be so full of love that you have no room for judgment. So I'm going to challenge you to do this week, to take the time when you get that frustration, because we all get frustrated. We all have moments in our lives where we're like, can't believe they did that. And if we use this simple practice, it can shift things in us and change the energy in our environment, and who knows what you can create. Maybe somebody will get up on stage and acknowledge you. So in Science of Mind, we have our we believes. This is the second we believe. We believe in the individualization of the Spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. So that means there is the whole, there is God. And inside of God, there is us. And us is the experience that God is happening as a physical experience in this reality. That was a lot of words. But basically it means I'm an expression of God, you're an expression of God, you're an expression of God, and we are here to have those experiences. But when we get caught up with, I don't agree with you, so you're wrong and bad, or you don't agree with me, so you think I'm wrong and bad, we are not honoring each other as elements or energies of God. We are putting our judgment of what should look like in front of the acknowledgement that we are all one, that we are all here to have the experience. And if I had the same experience and opinions that you do, and you have the same experience and opinions that I do, why would both of us need to exist? Right? So I remember when I was about 15 years old, I was visiting my Aunt Gloria. And my Aunt Gloria was very, very religious. It was her entire life was around the church that she belonged to. And I respect that passion and that conviction. But at 15, it was very confusing to me because that was not how I was raised. I was not raised with the beliefs that she held. And so I remember taking the phone, and it had one of those little squiggly pigtails. You remember them? And I went into the bathroom. That's how long it was, because I got from the kitchen, and I was in the bathroom, and I was sitting on the floor with my mom on the phone. And I'm like, I'm so confused. How can she be so passionate and so have such conviction that she is right, and it doesn't follow any that we believe in? And so is she wrong or am I wrong? And my mom said, you know, Rachel, she doesn't have to be wrong for you to be right. And you don't have to be wrong for her to be right. It is a belief system, and we all have our own, and it's okay. And I remember thinking, that's an interesting way of looking at life. And I think that's followed me through all these years, because I can be so full of love there doesn't have to be judgment. Now there's negotiation. There is, you and I are on opposite sides of the pole. We want different things to happen, but we really probably want the same things to happen. Like we want peace on earth, we want love, we want compassion, we want individual respect. But your way of approaching it and my way of approaching it may be different. There's a great book. It's called Getting to the Yes. It's a negotiation book. It's a beautiful book. And I found it very enlightening and very helpful. Because sometimes, one of the good stories in that one is two little kids, they both want the orange. They're fighting over the orange, and mom comes in and goes, you can't both, why do you want the orange? And so the one little girl says, well, I want the orange zest so that I can make my pie, cake, whatever she was cooking. And the other one said, well, I want to eat it, I'm hungry. And so because mom asked the question, she could peel the orange, give the zest to one kid, give the meat to the other kid, and we're no longer at war because we both have what we were looking for, but only by asking the clarifying questions do we get to the point of understanding the needs of each individual. So The Power of Yes, highly recommended. We're not there yet. So there is a lot of things that we can be aware of if we're talking about our spiritual practices, getting to that place where we are honoring ourselves by allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. But I want to go back to what that looks like, because being vulnerable doesn't necessarily mean that I'm just going to go lay myself out in front of everybody and open myself up to dangerous and unnecessary places, right? I have to be strong enough inside of me to be able to be that in that space. So to start with, we want to be in safe places. We want to draw our boundaries. We want to know that the people we're talking to are going to create that safe environment. And once we grow stronger, then we are able to be more vulnerable and open because our roots are deeper. So there's a master gardener. And the master gardener has these little, you've seen them, the little fences around the flowers to protect the flowers, right? And every day he'd go out and he'd prune them a little bit, and he'd loosen the soil a little bit and give them a little extra love and a little extra water. And the neighbor comes over and he goes, why do you put fences around your plants? And the gardener says, well, it's not to keep the love out, but to keep the weeds from encroaching on the plants. And if we look at that as our garden, our mental garden, and God as the gardener, we can put the fences around our growth, our being able to flower, our producing fruit, to keep the growth, the unwantedness out, the negativity, the weeds out, so that we can grow in a stronger, more powerful way. So you may have heard that we have bombed Iraq, right? Iran, thank you. We've bombed Iran. So last night, David's reading this to me, and I'm like, what? And I go to this really defensive place. I go to this, how dare they? Oh my gosh, this is horrible. And then I remember this presentation or this talk that I was doing today, and I thought, maybe I don't need to go to fighting. Maybe it's not about the fight. Maybe it's about the peace. Maybe it's about me being even stronger in my convictions of love, of seeing each individual as a perfect expression, and knowing that in that peace in me, that I can help bring peace to you, and in your peace, that you can help bring peace to the next group of people, and we can increase the peace one individual at a time. David said to me yesterday, I think you're talking about the forest, but maybe we need to talk about the trees. And I said, that's right. That's exactly what we need to talk about. We need to talk about the trees that is me. I need to be the strongest tree. I need to make sure that my watering happens and my roots are deep. And you know that song, We Can't Stop the Fire, by Billy Joel? It's been burning since the beginning of time. I lost the words to it just now. We didn't start the fire. It's been burning since the world's been turning. We try to fight it even though we didn't ignite it, right? So maybe the fight isn't it. Maybe we should stop trying to fight it, and we should tend to our tree and make sure it's strong and it's watered. We got these fires happening around us. Because of why? Because the earth is dry and there's not enough rain, and the trees they're ready to be ignited, right? But what if something different had happened? What if the underbrush had been pushed away? What if there had been enough water for the trees? Then they wouldn't have ignited in the fire, right? It would have stopped a lot sooner. And so maybe that's the point, is taking care of ourselves, allowing ourselves to be nurtured so the fire doesn't even happen, because we're not fighting it, we're just doing something different. Let's pray. So knowing that God is all there is, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present, knowing that God is the source of all things, I know that I am of and from and in and as this universal energy, as is everybody in this room. Everybody hears my voice right this moment. All the world is a reflection and an existence of this universal energy. And so knowing this, the truth, I know that my words have power. And so I declare right here and right now that there is so much love. There is no room for judgment. There's so much love in my heart and the hearts around us that there is only nurture. There is only nourishment. There is vulnerability and acceptance and peace. That this world understands and feels that peace. That prayer is used as a tool to validate, to express, to experience the God experience, whatever that looks like. And for this I am grateful. I am so very grateful for this being the truth, that each individual flowers and blossoms into their divine purpose. So grateful. I release my word into the law, knowing it is done, done, done. And together we affirm by saying, and so it is. And so it is.